Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to Small Business War Stories. And again, this is our special South by Southwest week. So we're doing we're not doing our regular Wednesday episode this week. We are doing 5 episodes in a row about South by Southwest. And they're going to be shorter episodes. They're going to be quick hits. And we're going to get some cool stories from people who are here in town in Austin, Texas, doing all kinds of interesting things. Today I had the chance to sit down with Jim Bowes. And Jim is a very interesting guy. He's from the UK, and he's involved with a digital agency there. And we talked about technology and sort of like, oftentimes when I'm on the road, I hear from people that technology can be very overwhelming, and you hear about people getting replaced by technology. So we have a conversation about bridging that gap for small business people and how we can think about those things in ways that are not overwhelming. He had some really, really cool insights. And this is a cool, quick hit episode. Again, part of our South by Southwest week. And this episode, like every episode of Small Business War Stories, is brought to you by Proven. Proven.com is a company I started, and it is a small business information hub. We have the Small Business War Stories podcast. We have different blog posts to help you with different needs for your small business. And we have a hiring tool that you can use. If you need to hire people, you can come post a job to Proven. We will post it widely, and you can collect all of the applicants in one place. Check it out, proven.com. Support us. That's how we keep the lights on with the podcast and everything we do. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode with the great Jim Bowes during our South by Southwest week with Small Business War Stories in Austin, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful Austin, Texas. I am sitting here this morning with Jim Bowes, and Jim is one of the speakers here at South by Southwest for this time around, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Manifesto Digital in the UK. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I think you're our first UK guest on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, when you got in touch with me, I was like, "Are you sure you want people from the UK?"
Yeah, we want people who can help our audience, and I think that's transcends borders.
Yeah,
we've
absolutely.
had people from other countries, just not the UK.
Well, I'm glad to be the first.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you do a lot of things. So you are the CEO of a digital agency, and so before we go into, you did a really interesting talk, which I want to focus our chat on your talk. But can you give the title of the talk again? It's
yeah, absolutely. It's called "The Best Is Yet to Come: Digital Renaissance."
Okay.
So it's about, there's a lot of stories in the press about the fear around robots stealing our jobs and autonomous vehicles taking away all the jobs in driving.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take a positive look at it, where with my co-presenter Rob from our podcast, where we look at a future where we'll all have more time on our hands. We'll be able to spend more time on art, on music, on philosophy, on all of those good things in life. And that was really what we were talking about. Okay,
that's great. And the reason why I think that's really interesting for our audience is a lot of times people who are starting, their small businesses, their companies, the amount of technology out there is overwhelming, and it changes so fast, and sometimes it's scary, right? Because even let's say that last year you implemented something that was working well, and you thinking like, now I can worry about something else, and you look and it changed.
Absolutely, yeah. The pace of change is getting ever quicker. And depending on what you do, you could be in an industry that is going to be transformed by technology.
Yeah.
And so, you're left with that question of what should you do about it? I think, one of the things to do is have a good look at all of the businesses that do similar stuff to you.
Okay.
And see, so I spotted this with my own business. So classically, what we were well known for historically was designing and building websites.
Okay.
The truth is, people like Squarespace and Wix have made it so that anyone can make a website for themselves. So the bottom end of that market has been commoditized. And so there's not so much opportunity. So I saw this, and I know 4 businesses that have gone out of business in the UK who do similar stuff to what we used to do. So we had to change our proposition and move it on.
Yeah, that must have been scary though. When Squarespace first came out, you probably were like, "Oh, that's never going to work well enough," right?
Yeah.
And then
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, and then a few years later, you're like, "Oh."
Now you can build a whole e-commerce store on it.
Yeah, and it's you have all the plugins, and you can use Shopify and whatever, and make everything work, right?
Yeah, so you have to think about the part of the market that you're addressing, and people will always want service.
Yeah.
People will always want human interaction on some level, and so just because you can use technology to augment what you do or help you with what you do doesn't mean that humans are going to be obsolete.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do you, if somebody's like, well, the robots are coming, my job's going to be obsolete. How do you see humans evolving forward in a way that they're, complementing it and using technology to make things better, not to leave people out of work and sitting at home playing video games?
So I think in the first instance, so when it comes to artificial intelligence, most of what we see in the world today is very narrow AI. So the thing that predicts the cost of your fare on Uber or on Lyft or whatever, fasten here in Austin, that is a piece of AI, but it's very narrow. It does one job very specifically, very well. And I think what we can see is, even in some of the sort of presentation software that you get to do presentations, it will now come up with creative suggestions, but it still requires you. So I think what we see there is technology helping make us more productive.
Okay.
And if we're more productive, we can do more, and maybe we have to tackle some really big questions. We may have to look at things like, do we tax the bots?
Do you tax a robot the way you would a person? Yeah,
that may. So one of the things that I've been working on is creating digital workforces, or looking at how and they get paid kind of a salary.
Wow.
But if they get paid a salary, it's a monthly cost. It's like many sort of tech things. So if they get paid a salary, surely there could be a reason for them to be taxed. Here at South by Southwest, someone went one step further, that you could get an AI to set up your entire business. And it would work out when it needs humans to help, and then it would ask for the human help, and it would recruit the right humans.
Wow.
But obviously a bot doesn't need the money it produces.
Right.
So the wealth and the money that is created by this new productivity, there's an opportunity for that to be distributed to people.
Yeah. Wow. That's okay. That's kind of mind-blowing. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So there's so many layers to what we just said, right? There's inequality, there's distribution of income, taxation. Not where I thought our talk was going to go, but we're
keeping it light, right?
Yeah, no, we can talk about that. Let's talk a little bit from the perspective of small business.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring it back to that.
Yeah, let's bring it back to perspective. So if you're a small business owner, let's say you have 5 employees or 20 employees.
Yeah.
Or you're doing your own thing and you have like maybe one other person that helps you. What's the best way to keep up with the pace of technology without becoming overwhelmed by all the change?
Yeah, we at Manifesto, my company, we do a thing called radars. So we just use this sort of circular system, a bit like a sort of bullseye kind of system, and we write on it the things that are affecting us right now. So let's say you're Toys R Us. It's a day to mention. So in the UK, Toys R Us is a traditional retailer of toys. They're closing all of their stores in the UK. Mm-hmm. And I believe the same is going to happen in the US in the next few weeks. And they are obviously being heavily affected by Amazon, I guess, and other online toy retailers. So the question for them is, were they brave enough early enough? And they could have had a radar of all of the different chains of stores or the different types of commerce that were affecting them. And if you look at the people that have been successful, so, let's look at vinyl in the music industry.
Sure.
There's
I collect records, so you're sitting with the right person.
Okay, great, yeah. So you look at something there where there's been a real dip in its sales, and then it's become premium, and then it's become desirable.
Yep. And
the production values that have gone into it have gone up, and there's now a high-end market. So the question is, what in the industry that you're in, what's that pattern likely to be? And so if at the moment you can see that you're being challenged on you sell anything for anyone, is the future for you that there will be this sort of more exclusive premium market, and should you move your business slightly more in that direction?
So let's talk about a specific example. So what is something for, let's say for a small business that makes, boots.
Makes boots.
Yeah. So how do you think about it from their perspective?
Okay, yeah. So I can think of some examples. So you're a boot maker. Let's play a game here.
Yeah.
What's special about these boots?
I think, let's use the boots I'm wearing right now. This is a company in Boulder, Colorado. They were a guest on the podcast.
Yeah.
They're called Truman Boot Company. Vince Romano, their founder, was on an episode. I think people appreciate the craftsmanship that goes into them. They're very well-made boots, so their boots are meant to last, probably your entire lifetime and get resold and passed on. They're not boots that were meant to be worn for a couple of seasons. They're boots that probably get better with age, as they like patina and I think people appreciate the craftsmanship of it.
Okay, so they've got a great story.
They do have a great story.
They've got a great story, so I think that's an important part of it, and they've got some heritage, and so they need to then look at who are the people that they want or they think will want to buy their boots, and those are going to be some people that want to buy into the heritage and that story.
Right.
So then you need to then start to factor in who's challenging that market space,
right,
for trying to sell some boots to these people too.
So in that case, it would be companies that have heritage brands, but that are outsourcing their manufacturing to China and doing things much cheaper, and actually with increasing levels of quality.
Yeah, because the manufacturing processes are getting so much better, and
right.
There's if you look at things like 3D printing and Adidas and Nike have invested huge amounts in factories that can produce one-off shoes locally. So there's a sort of personalization sort of agenda, right. and the fourth industrial revolution really relates to the transformation of the manufacturing process,
okay.
a term coined in Germany, one of the things that we talked about when we were here. However, what you've got is a premium product that will appeal to people, and I think really what you're then trying to do is just make sure you're staying modern on the channels that you're communicating on, and also possibly, which is a little bit more unusual, is looking at, are there any alternate business models? So I think, if you look at what Dollar Shave Club have done, which is obviously a much lower end product, they've made shaving and razors a subscription product, but I know of a company in the UK that
okay.
makes quality shoes that are looking to make that a subscription service. Now,
quality shoes, that's an oxymoron, because you have quality shoes, then you keep them for a long time.
I think they're trying to convince people they need more than one pair of
okay.
quality shoes. So yeah, I think one of the interesting things is what else could go with the shoes. Maybe there's some aftercare products or
socks.
Something. Socks and maybe subscription socks to go with. But I think what you need to do is, in the way that communication works now, you need to find a way that people want to stay in touch with you and want to become ambassadors for your brand.
So what I'm hearing, actually, and this isn't a lot, I talk a lot about this in the book that I'm writing right now, is story, the power of story, right? Like that's something that differentiates, because when you brought up vinyl, and then we talked about these boots, and actually a big reason why people buy these boots is the story behind them, and they're made in Boulder.
Yeah, I feel pretty good for these guys. I think if they've got a really high quality product and a great story.
Yeah, and they price it really premium as well.
And I think premium is a better place to be if you're using traditional methods.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That's a really interesting insight. So you're saying that if you want to succeed as a small business, going after a premium market in a world where the kind of low end of the market is getting commoditized is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that analogy is basically what I've done with Manifesto, is that we've pulled ourselves away from the Squarespace and Wix end of the website market, and we do things where people want us to interview their users and do research and craft the user experience,
right.
and really put care into what we do, because they've got a high-end thing that they're trying to achieve.
Right, and that's something the machines won't touch for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely more protected, and also as humans, we will still buy into those stories and the craft for sure.
Right. Okay. So go premium, go craft.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I mean, interestingly, if your aim was to scale your business, then that it's difficult to scale a premium business. So you can run a successful premium business at a small scale, but at a certain point, the addressable market is not big enough. And so I think then they would have a much bigger challenge if they wanted to become the biggest boot company in the world.
Right.
Then the whole proposition would have to change.
Right. I don't know that most of the people I interview and meet on the road have necessarily that as a goal. Like, I think people want to be a part of their community. I think people want to live their story. I think people want to produce a service or a product that is highly valued by people. Of course, there are some people, but this show tends to not be focused on that.
And I don't think it is desirable to scale a business to be massive. I don't think that's what the current generation want. I think people want businesses with purpose that maybe have a positive impact on the community,
authenticity,
or on society. And it's not my dream to have a massive business. I want to be remembered for the people that I helped and those kinds of things. So
yeah. I mean, it's be careful what you wish for, right? So it's I know some folks that have scaled their businesses to a very, very large point, and it's got trade-offs for sure. It's not free.
The journey while I was in Austin, it was 6 years since I went full time at Manifesto. I was here 12 months after we started previously, and it's been tough going from 3 people to 50 people in that time. And I would probably look back and say there was points where it was more enjoyable for me on a personal level than it is running a 50-person company, because it gets hard.
Yeah. I mean, and you start, all of a sudden your issues are a lot of people issues and people
all of those
challenges.
Yeah. I'm sharing all the roles that we're hiring while I'm out here, because we need to keep up with the pace of things.
What would you say from a psychological perspective, if you're a small business owner, and sometimes I think fear can come into play a lot when you see all these changes in technology, and you see it's one thing to attack, like you said, you had a rational approach to it where you're like, hey, here's different, we have the bullseye things where you have different things that are changing around something.
Yeah.
But psychologically, what do you think? Do you have any tips or ways in which you can maybe not get overwhelmed by this? Because even I am in the intersection of a lot of this, right? So I pay attention to technology. I also pay attention to what's going on in the lives of small business people, and a lot of what I try to do is bridge that. But even I sometimes I'm like, wow, this is just overwhelming. So how do you suggest people deal with that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd suggest. One of the things I'd suggest is have a weekend away, take some rest. I try and do it quarterly, where I just try and not be in the detail of my business. So your relationship with how you move between being strategic and being involved in the day-to-day and that's whether you're a 2-person business or a 20-person or a 200-person business. If you're a founder, you operate at different levels, and one minute you're fixing the coffee machine, and the next minute you've got to decide the whole plan for the next year, and you have to find mechanisms to do that effectively. I think the other thing I'd say is find someone that you can talk to and run things through. So I 3 years into Manifesto, I added a non-exec director to my board, if you like, and actually he's here in South by Southwest, and we had breakfast the other day, and we just sort of chew the fat would be the British expression.
No, we say that here too.
We just have a talk about stuff, and then you start to, and being at a conference, or being at an event, or being something that sort of just makes you see lots of other stuff is really helpful, but you then need to take the time to reflect on that. And one of the things in the early years I really found was that I had a tendency to just overwork. So I'd work 80 hours a week, and then your decisions get worse. And so that step back, don't feel guilty about taking some rest.
Okay. Because it allows you to then come into things with a fresher perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Where can people find you and your business if they're interested in learning more about what you're doing? You said you did your talk. You said it was recorded. Is it available to the public?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the South by Southwest website. So it's called The Best Is Yet to Come, Digital Renaissance. I'm Jim Bowes. Robert Belgrave is my partner in crime. We do a podcast called Alexa Stop. It's available on iTunes and the normal places.
What's it called again?
Alexa Stop.
Okay, you'll write that down, and I'll put a link in the show notes.
You have to be really careful about leaving that, because it sets people's echoes into all kinds of trouble. But, do that. And then Manifesto is manifesto.co.uk. We're a 50-person agency in London, and I'm available on Twitter, Jim Bowes.
Sounds good. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.